Welcome to She Said,
Let's
where we chat the tricks and treats of the business of film and TV
shine a light on women who've empowered us.
and dish on plot twists in our life we just had to say.
Let's too.
In today's episode, we'll be getting some insight on the MBC Fellowship
Finding out who we are in Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
and cosplaying as Jennifer Lopez in our very own This Is Me Now and How Did We Get Here? I am Kay, obviously.
And I am Hannah, obviously.
And today we have a very special guest, writer and director Sebastián Rea. I met you through previous guest on EML, which actually I would love to know how you two met as well.
Ana Yamel is my sister from another mister. I met her in New York many years ago, maybe like 2015, 2016. I was working at the Tribeca Enterprises and I was hiring interns at the time. And Ana Yamel's resume was on the pile and I was looking through a few and I really found her resume impressive. And the fact that she was Latina, Mexican, I really wanted to meet her because at the time there were not a lot of people of color in Tribeca and I was one of the only ones. So got to meet her. She blew me away at the interview, was not only a very talented filmmaker, had an awesome perspective, but was also like a really humble and awesome human being to be around. And she brought like great energy to our team at Tribeca and, you know, just loved her being my friend. She's one of my best friends. And we were in New York for so long at Tribeca until we all got fired or laid off together in like 2017. And we just remained in contact ever since. And I know that she moved to LA before I did, and she moved to Mexico to go back home. And I was still in New York. Whenever she came to New York, I would visit. We always texted. We always talked about movies. And then when I finally made the move to LA, she's one of my only family members here in LA. And she's always made me feel like I'm her brother too. So I really love her for that. You know, she was just really gracious, bringing me into her circles and inviting me to events and, you know, having dinner parties at her house. So, you know, she's amazing.
She's such a good cook.
She's an amazing cook. Yeah. She makes mole también, and it's my favorite. Well, that and birria, but mole, I never saw anybody make it in their house. So when she made it for me, I was like, wow, that's incredible. So yeah, she never ceases to amaze.
I know she knows a particular salsa that I really like, and so when she comes over, sometimes she'll like bring me a little thing of it, and I'm like, oh,
you see the attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, also with our connection, even though we met through her, I feel like anyone who is in the Latina like filmmaking or writing community space can tell you that this is one that we all tend to see each other at like everything. So I feel like I see you all the time at all sorts of events and stuff, and film festivals and whatnot. And I will say that I've always found you to be such a good time. And that's not always the case with everybody that you meet in these types of, you know, professional environments. And you're so charismatic, and I just feel like you like radiate fun to me. So I'm glad that you're here today, and the listeners get to know you as I have. And, you know, I'm a big fan. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I remember I met you. I was like, who is that girl? I need to meet her with the hair. And she got the personality. And you was a writer too. And, you know, in the Latinx community, it was really dope to become your friend and be so like tight knit so quickly. And as like, just to add to what you were saying, it's really a beautiful thing to have that community out here in LA, and especially, you know, rely on each other for jobs, for friendships, for, you know, eyes on our scripts, on our projects. And I think it's really what helps us like move forward.
Yeah, 100%. Well, congratulations are in order for you, sir, because you have gotten into one of the most elusive studio-run fellowships, I will say.
Oof. Yeah.
I know. And it is something that all of us, you know, diverse writers aspire to be chosen for. So tell us about your experience in the MBC Fellowship, what things that maybe you learned that you're now enacting in like your future meetings or staffing endeavors. And you can talk about that as well if you'd like to. And then also what your journey was with fellowships in general, because, it's a long road. You don't often hear about people who are like, I applied to one fellowship and then I got in my first year and, and now I'm a staff writer. Like,
Yeah.
usually it's several years and years of applying to all sorts of shit. Hannah hears me all the time being like, I have another application due. I have another deadline for this, whatever.
Yep.
And of
Yep.
course, you apply so many times and the chances of you getting in are like, you might get into one every like couple of years, if even. So,
Yeah. No, 100%. Well, exactly to your point, I have been applying to the NBC launch program for about like 3 times already in like the past 4 years. And, it's always rejected. But I think being a filmmaker and not having like the resources or the pipeline to get into the industry, you really need to, use whatever resources you have available to you. But I heard through the grapevine that you should keep applying to those programs because they keep a file on you, and then they see literally you progress as a writer if you're not ready yet or whatever. But I would apply to maybe 10 to 15 programs a year for like the past 12 years. I think I was always just applying to something. The first program I ever got into, I was like 15 years old, and I was in New York, and that program, it was like the Smithsonian Institute Latino Center Young Ambassador Program, and they chose 10 young Latino artists from across the U.S. To come to D.C. and I guess just be in a space where other Latinx executives and Latinx people that worked in entertainment were, so you could see people that looked like you and had similar stories. And that was really the first time that I ever felt like seen, and I felt like, oh, entertainment, film, TV is something viable and possible for me. Growing up in a community where I grew up in Queens, lower income, my parents weren't very rich. We were immigrants, so being a filmmaker or being an artist was never something that was encouraged. So to have that encouragement from these people was like the first time I felt like, oh wow, this is possible. And I just kept at it. And I did a few labs throughout my years growing up, like in my late teens, early 20s, starting my career. But I think the thing that got me to LA, besides working with JLo, was getting into the LALIF program, which granted me the Indigenous Inclusion Fellowship for my short film Heritage. And that was like, they gave me $20,000 to make my short film, and then they come to LA, premiere it, and then, be in the network of Latino filmmakers. And that for me was like really comforting because I didn't know anybody really in LA, and to be immediately plugged into that network made me feel like I had a family.
and
And
shout out to previous guest Chloe Cadillo, because she was also in that, and I worked on her film in that like
oh,
last
cool,
year. Yeah.
dope. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful program, and that program where I did Heritage, the short film, I ended up getting into the Outfest screenwriting lab with that short film, and I made it into a pilot. And then at Outfest, I workshopped it with the mentors there into the pilot that I submitted to NBC, which eventually got me in. So it was like it all happened one after the other. But I think another thing that I attribute to is actually being physically like in LA and being in the spaces and networking, literally. I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for networking. Ever since I was like a teenager, I would hang out in New York, like at the MoMA or at Lincoln Center, at Tribeca, just at all the film events. I loved film ever since I was a child, and I wanted to work in film. I knew that's what I wanted to do. And I would just hang around, and I met everybody. I was just like, hey, do you need an intern? Are you hiring? Can I volunteer? Can I do this? And I was like young, and until I finally hit 18, when they can legally hire me, I started, volunteering at these festivals and just, getting the lay of the land. But the NBC launch program really is one of the kind, and I think it's one of the best programs out there. They really have took me from trying to look for my first break and to getting my first break in the industry as a TV writer. And I think like as filmmakers, I'm gonna be a little honest here. I never really thought that I would get into TV first. Film was my main goal. And to me, I was like, oh, TV is like it's like a different lane. It's like more of like a commercial machine industry type of thing where they just like crank them out. I wanted to like make art and cinema, but but TV, you know, evolved, and TV
I
has
feel like that's very New York of you.
it
I
could be,
feel like
yeah.
New York people are always saying that shit. Like anybody who comes here is like, no, 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 I'm a filmmaker.
I'm a
That's it.
filmmaker,
You
yeah.
know,
No,
it's
like
like the
TV,
angsty artist in you. You know,
yeah,
like living there.
hell yeah, and like, but it wasn't until TV started to evolve, right? It started to go on streaming that the medium changed, and now it's like became more cinematic, and the stories are telling are a little bit, you know, higher stakes, more compelling, gritty. So I wanted to be a part of that, and since the NBC launch program started, it just like took me from 0 to 100 in like a week, literally. And being in that program, the first few days when I was meeting the other writers, I was meeting Helen and everybody else that was there. I was like, what am I doing here? Everybody is so much more talented than me. All their scripts are amazing. Like I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but you end up realizing that you belong. And I think that was like the most beautiful thing, that you we all felt that way. You know, like I was talking to all the fellows now that we're all like best friends. They all opened up and they were like, yeah, I felt the same way about you and your writing. And I was like, whoa, you thought that about me? Like, and then I think a big part about being a person of color and being in the industry, we're never taught that like we deserve to be here. You know, we never feel like this space is for us. So I always feel like I have imposter syndrome when I come into like these big productions and things. And I feel like one of the big parts about the program, the cool thing about NBC Launch, was that everything that your family and that your own mind told you to hide when you were young because you were ashamed or because you were scared about, all those things is what NBC is telling you to embrace and own and really like talk about, because that's what makes you specific, makes you unique, and makes your vision different than all the millions of other people that are in the industry. So leaning into that and like leaning into my, I guess like just the fact that I belong here is took a little bit of a struggle, but now that I'm finally like coming out of it, I feel like, yeah, I fucking belong here. And these stories that I'm going to tell, I've been wanting to see since I was 10 years old, and they still haven't been on TV. And I know hundreds of other people just like me that want to see those exact same stories. So like the program leaders, Michael, Robert, Ivy, they are so gracious and they're so humble and they just very nurturing. And they have taught us to like talk about ourselves, have a personal story that we have to tell all the time, have a log line that we pitch ourselves as writers, and also like talk about like the main things that inform our writing. And another woman, her name is Carol. She's our Jewish grandmother in the program. She's been in TV in the industry forever, and she knows everybody, and she's worked with everybody. She's cultivated all your favorite showrunners and writers today. She's
Wait, is it Carol Kirshner?
Yeah, Carol Kirshner.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know her as well?
Well, I don't know her personally, but she's, you know, she's done a million talks
Yeah.
about, like, because isn't she Paramount? I thought she did like the Paramount.
She
stuff
started
as
all
well.
the programs, all the TV writer fellowships. She started, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, she's incredible, and she just like teaches you the importance of, you know, just like selling yourself, because that's what we're doing here. We're pitching ourselves to be on shows, to sell product, and to get into the market, and so she was just a godsend, really. Like, she's taught me so much. And the other really cool thing that they make you do in the program is they make you do like mock showrunner meetings. So they have like really awesome showrunners come in and talk to us, and then we each do like one-on-ones interviews with the showrunner while everybody else is watching. So it's like really intimidating, and the pressure's on, and sometimes showrunners are really, really cool, and they'll like throw you curveballs. They'll pretend to be on the phone as if they were an exec, you know, with a million calls, and they're just like, oh yeah, really great, yeah. And that's just like to throw you off a little bit as like what to expect as a writer, right? Like, you never know who's going to be interviewing you or like what they're going to say. So that's really awesome. And it just like it brings down your guard. You know, it's less about being academic and being so formal about pitching yourself, and it's more about just having a conversation. And I think that's the other thing that helped me get into the NBC launch program, was that after finally applying like millions of times to tons of different programs and not getting in, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. I'm going to write this personal essay in my most like, unique voice that is not going to be grammatically correct, nor will it be like AP English, but it's going to have like a real, like myself. And that's what got me in. And I realized like the more you write these personal essays, they don't want them to be academic. Like they don't want this like AP English dissertation on who you are. These essays are the first thing they read before your screenplays and your pilots. So this is really the way to get in and get to the next round when they're like, okay, now that they have a really interesting, unique personal story that I read, maybe now I'll read their pilot. And I think that's like one of the main keys that I always tell people that are applying to programs now. I'm just like, just get out of your head as much as you can and be as real in the tone of your writing as possible. And so that's what got me in. The other thing I also think that got me in was my screenplay heritage was actually the story that I was most afraid to write. And it's based on my coming out story. And I came out when I was 18. My parents kicked me out. I had to run away from home, get a restraining order against my dad, eventually like emancipate myself from my family. I didn't talk to them for 5 years while I was in college. Like all that stuff I was afraid to write and like put into a screenplay, because when I revisited those things, it became like more real to me. And I felt like
also it's painful.
It's painful, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had felt like I was good, like I had got over all that, and but I wasn't. And finally writing it and putting it into script form, confronting what I was afraid of most, put me in a really vulnerable spot. And that is the golden ticket to getting into these things. Like everyone that I've spoken to, they say the same. They're like, these are the scripts that, I was circling for years. And then when I finally got down to write it, it's the thing that most people wanted to see because it was the realest, most vulnerable part of me. So thank you for NBC for, realizing that and empowering me to like own my own trauma, but also like rise above it at the same time.
Well, you kind of have to like, I know from my own stuff that those kind of scenarios, it's almost like therapy, you know what I mean? You're becoming a better person just from writing a script, which is kind of wild to think about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you have to be, at least if it's good and you're writing it from an honest place, if you're just trying to write about like a moment in your life but you're not being completely honest about it, then maybe not. But I think that helps you grow as a person too, while you're doing that. And I think people can see that within the writing, and so they respect that.
Totally. No, totally. It's true. And I feel like people resonate with that stuff too. Like your honesty, like they may not have experienced the same thing as you, but that feeling or that emotion that you went through or you're captivating in your script, they probably have felt as well. Yeah, no, like just what you said, it was very therapeutic, writing the script, but then shooting the short film version of it and like recreating the moments with like my mom and my dad and like all that was like so surreal. I was just like, what, like, I thought I was dreaming, it was like insane. And, but very cathartic in the end of the day. And if knowing what I know now, I would have done this a long time ago.
Well, side note, I was very intrigued by the movie and TV options that you sent me when I asked you to send me like 10 movies and 10 TV shows for the segments.
Yeah.
So can you tell the listeners a bit of what you like and also how that affects your writing? Because for me, I feel like I've known you for a couple years now, and I'm not gonna lie, because we connected so much like from the beginning, I have no fucking idea what you write. you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just because when you're at all these events and stuff, like it's kind of the last thing I want to talk about after a while. You know what I mean? Because I'm just like, I just want to get to know you as a human being. And half the time you get hired off of shit just because people like you.
Yeah.
They haven't even read you half the
that
time.
That is so true. It's wild.
So I guess tell us about, what's your taste and how it affects your writing.
I love coming of age stories. I love stories where the lead is like an outcast or somebody that is misunderstood. I grew up having to hide a lot about myself, being queer, indigenous, Latinx, an immigrant. So I had to hide all that to like fit into society. But now I just want to be like unapologetically who I am and like create spaces for that in my writing. So I love characters that have like dual lives, hidden secrets, you know. And I think for me, that's why those movies, like the first film I ever saw when I came to America, my mom took me to see Batman Returns in the movie theater with Catwoman and Penguin. I was maybe like 4 years old, I think, and I don't know what about that viewing experience. Maybe it was a theater, maybe it was just like, you know, everything all at once, but I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to do that. Like, I want to be that. And then at the end of the movie, the credit came up, directed by Tim Burton. So it was the first thing that popped up. And I would not stop repeating that for years. Like, I want to be a director. I want to be a director. I want to be a director. I didn't even know what it meant, but I just knew. So, and I think like later on, as I started to grow up and like have friends and like assimilate to American society, shows like Buffy and Boy Meets World, and like, you know, X-Men, Batman, all those types of shows really spoke to me because, you know, they were hiding something. They had like a secret that only a few people knew about. They had a chosen family because their own family wouldn't understand them. And they had to overcome some huge obstacle that was either going to destroy the world, kill your family. You know what I mean? So those stakes were always so high. And I think that's really informed my writing because I love writing horror genre, sci-fi. I love drama in general, but I love like
Drama queen.
yeah, I'm a huge drama queen. And like the sci-fi and the horror aspects to me, what I want to do now is like give the Hollywood treatment to stories that include Indigenous, Latinx, people of color, queer, whatever, all the people that were not in front and center. I want to give them the Hollywood treatment through these genres that we normally see like predominantly white characters. And I think it's time for us to like finally move in to the space where we're not talking about our trauma as being marginalized. We're just the main character and we're in space and we're fighting vampires and that's it. We're not going to talk about me being an immigrant because we're on fucking Mars, you know what I mean? But like the main character is just a person of color. So yeah, I'm really very much like geared towards those kind of stories, as well as I love comedy too. I mean, I'm maybe not the best comedy writer, but I feel like life has comedy, like real drama has comedy. And so adding that in is just more of like dramatizing real life for me. So maybe I'm a dramedy writer too. I don't know.
Love this. Okay, so we know that you're also a filmmaker. So how do you think having that experience has impacted your writing as a whole, even within TV, and why could it be beneficial or a beneficial experience to others who are coming into the industry now?
Mm-hmm. It's been a little tough. Like being a filmmaker, you have to, whenever I'm writing something now, I'm not only thinking creatively as a writer, but I'm also thinking like as a producer. I'm like, oh, do we need to have 2 scenes outside, 2 different nights? Does it need to be like different locations? Can these scenes be one, you know, because I can't hire an actor for 2 days. I can only get them 1 day. So it's hard to like differentiate that because on one hand, you just want to be creative and write. And then the other hand, you want to be practical and know what's possible. So I think the best way to do it, and I try to teach myself now, is just write. Just let it all come out, you know, dream big, shoot for the stars, and then like slowly pull it back when you're, you know, closer to shooting or whatever. But I just think like getting it out the first time really helps the creative process. And when you're redoing revisions, maybe like on your 8th, 9th revision, 12th revision of the script, you start putting your producer hat on and then you start cutting scenes because you're like, oh, this scene can actually be one scene. And maybe that's not just the producer brain, but that's also like the writer brain. You know, you're condensing, you're cutting, you're killing your babies, you know, you're finding the best way to tell the story. And then you have to keep reminding yourself of like, what are the needs? What are the wants? Why do they need that right now? And what's important? And once you distill that, you'll start to like pick up like the final draft. But being a filmmaker has definitely helped me, you know, in all aspects, especially now like that I started to work in the Hollywood space when I was working with Jennifer Lopez. I got to see movies being done at this like $100 million budget level, and me assisting Jennifer, I was like the liaison between all the departments because they all wanted 5 minutes with her, and she didn't have time to talk to everybody. So I had to like get all the information, distill it down in like quick bullet points so she could just yes, no, whatever. And it's just I got to meet all the key department heads, right? Like I got to meet everybody. Everybody knew me because I was important, and the producers got to know me, the ADs, the director. Like being that liaison is a masterclass in filmmaking that I can't stress enough. And I feel like you can even get that being a PA on jobs. Just being as close to production as possible is like the most important thing to honing your craft as a writer, as a filmmaker, and furthering your career, I think, as a storyteller. The other part about like being a filmmaker, sometimes I have to like shut off, is like watching movies. I don't know if this happens to you guys, but I try to like, break things down. And I'm like, oh, that's a plot hole, or like that doesn't make sense, or like that camera movement was weird. And then you're like not enjoying the movie, So I have to like step back from that sometimes, but it's part of our job, I guess, and that's what's awesome about it.
I definitely feel that all the time when I'm watching stuff. I'm like, that's why I watch a lot of reality TV, because I'm like, I just need to get out of my head and enjoy something, that I'm not like critiquing. However, I will say, when you were saying that it was a masterclass, being an assistant and working for J-Lo and having to be the liaison between everyone, I'm sure that what a lot of people don't talk about, a lot of people talk about the craft of writing, right? But the craft of writing is a very small percentage of what actually gets you hired or in a room or makes you successful in a room in the first place. Yeah. And so I feel like that probably helped you so much in like pitching and in talking about yourself and being able to relay your own messages to showrunners, or it will help you in a room as far as like even just like social cues and stuff. You know what I mean? And knowing the departments and the levels of people that you're supposed to speak to before you speak to other people. There's a lot of like hierarchies, I feel like, in Hollywood. And I've heard so many people who've literally got fired for like the dumbest reasons, And so, but now you are aware of all of that. And so, you can succeed in that.
I think, yes, when I first got the job with Jennifer Lopez, again, I was like, oh, I don't want to do commercial movies. I want to make art, and I want to go to Cannes and like win my Grand Prix. But there's so much knowledge and there's so much experience that's waiting for you, like at any opportunity, really. Like that, like working with Jennifer really taught me like never to be precious about my opportunities, just to like go for it and throw yourself in there, because you're going to learn. And if nothing else, it'll give you good stuff to write about later. And yeah, like working with New York productions, I had experience with celebrities, working at Tribeca. Bob De Niro was my boss for 7 years. I was like his in-house filmmaking team. So we would shoot little videos with him when he would send videos to his family in Italy, or his favorite chef in Milan or whatever. He would do like little shit. So we would come and like shoot the thing with him. He was so cool. Like love him. He's like a grandfather figure, very funny. But you can't, be like, oh my God, I'm freaking out, it's Robert De Niro. Like, no, you can't do that at all. And, having that experience at least like, has made me not be starstruck. And I think like when you are in the room with showrunners of your favorite show, big actors, celebrities, they're human beings and they do this all the time. This isn't this like, dazzling thing for them. It's real life. And so you have to go and be yourself and be not intimidated by all this, which is impossible sometimes, but you have to really believe in yourself. And the thing that helps me is just like everybody takes a poop. You know what I mean? Like if I ever start to feel like, oh my God, I'm getting intimidated, I just like picture them shitting. I don't know why. That's like,
I like that analogy. Everybody shits.
Everybody shits. Like
everybody shits.
Obama is shitting right now. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter.
I know the title for the episode. Everybody shits.
We cannot do that to him. We can't.
Oh my God. That's a really good analogy though. I like that. I'm going to start using that.
It helps.
I mean, it's kind of like picturing everybody naked kind of thing. Like just like in a vulnerable
or
space.
Everybody in their underwear.
Yeah. That thing trips me up sometimes, because then I'm like, oh, like she's kind of hot. I wonder if she looks like this. Or like, oh, he's handsome. He's probably hot and naked. Like, I don't know. That it'll just like send me spiraling.
I know that one's a harder analogy for me as well. Like I understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
I like the one of everybody shitting because it's something that everybody's so uncomfortable to talk
Yeah.
about, but everybody does
Everybody
it.
does
It's
it.
a normal bodily function.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, on that note, the question that this entire podcast is based around is, what was something you were scared of doing in your film or TV career that you said let's to because a woman empowered you to do so, and who was that woman for you?
There's a producer. Her name is Courtney Baxter, and she's a producer at New York. She's one of my best friends. We worked at Tribeca together as well. She made the move to New York first, working with New York. She's the one that offered me the first job, being a personal assistant to the director of Shotgun Wedding, which was J-Lo's movie. And that's when I was like, oh, I don't want to go. I don't want to do it. But she basically told me to not be precious of my opportunities. You know, like, this is gonna be your first time on a Hollywood set. Like, why would you pass this up? She believed in me. She also, like, reassured me that, like, while I do this job with Jennifer, I will have a lot of time to write and develop my own projects on the side, because she knew ultimately, like, that's what I wanted to do. And she is a superwoman because she's not only, like, on the ground producing all of Jennifer's movies along with Elaine Goldsmith Thomas, which is the top producer. She's, like, telling other producers on set, like, who I am. She's introducing me to them. She's like validating my value. And so her empowering me to do all that really, like, gave me the courage to be myself, to tell the stories that I wanted to tell, to not be afraid to lean into my traumas or all the things that make me unique and different. So really, like, I attribute a lot of my success right now to her for bringing me out to LA, number one. Number two, giving me this awesome job of, like, the insider look on Hollywood, but also being, like, a gracious human being and an awesome producer. She's taught me so much, and yeah, she's really, like, put me on a great path.
Amazing. It's beautiful. Well, we are back with
I'm a blank,
where we choose a movie or TV show and decide which character we are and the backstory of why.
This week we'll be doing the iconic late 90s show on the WB before it was the CW, just so everyone's aware, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This was sort of a spin-off of an earlier film with the same name, but has become a cult classic for horror fans far and wide and everyone who loves Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yes, we do love her. We just talked about her actually on our previous episode,
Oh, cool.
Girly Pop Stock Culture.
Yeah,
so
we talked about her and Freddie Prinze Jr. and their relationship.
I love them.
Right?
They're so
Right?
cute. They're the cutest couple. Like,
they still are to this
Yeah.
day. Like, oh,
Yeah.
that right there. That's one couple that has not been corrupted by Hollywood.
Oh, thank God, you know.
Yeah, no, cheers.
Cheers to that.
I still watch. I know what you did last summer because they're both in that movie together.
I just rewatched that like the other day.
Does it still hold up? Is it
So good.
It's good, right?
Oh yeah,
Still so
it's
good.
still so good.
Cool.
Well, I rewatched all of this show actually after I graduated college, which it does take a very long time to get through all of these episodes.
It was a lot.
And honestly, a lot of writing on it actually still holds up. Obviously, there's a couple of problematic things, but, you know, the listeners of the pod know that I love an angsty, like, teen drama and add in magic recipe for the perfect witch's brew, if you will, in this case. So we know that there are so many characters to choose from over the many seasons of this show, but who would you be and what is the backstory of why?
I feel like I really want to be Spike because he was just so sexy and, like, elusive. He had cool bleached hair. I felt like he was kind of bisexual too. I don't know. Maybe I'm making that up, but, like, somewhere along the line.
No, you're not.
I'm not, right? Like,
You're not.
Something.
He for sure was a little bisexual.
Yeah. So there was that, but I feel like I was also Angel. I feel because at the time I had a girlfriend, she, you know, I felt like she was my Buffy and I was the Angel because we were both, like, gothic in our like we were like in 7th, 6th grade. In our goth era, we were like outcast, you know. And
you gotta send us a picture. You gotta send us a picture of this.
I had, like,
need
the
it.
spiky hair, red contacts, like chains on my arms, like super
Okay,
angst.
MySpace roar.
Yeah. I had a top 8, like
Scene kid.
yeah, the UFO pants. You know what I mean? Like that was like peak culture. I think it was like our renaissance. I feel like the mid to late '90s was like the last renaissance we've had since, like culturally.
Yeah. I think we need a cultural reset, and I think we need to bring that back.
Yeah, I agree that style. I feel like the style is slowly coming back. I started watching the X-Men '97 TV show again on Disney. Amazing show. Everybody should watch it. But my favorite character right now is Jebelli because her outfit is so fresh. She has like the yellow trench with like the up collar, these pink fucking hoops, and like the Bad Bunny shades. Like she was ahead of her time back then. So it's all coming back. It's all coming back.
Exactly.
But yeah, I felt like I was Angel because I had my Buffy with my girlfriend at the time, and then we broke up, and the whole school knew about it. It was like this big thing, and it was happening at the same time that Angel and Buffy like broke up, and so it was all like mirroring my life at the same time. But deep down, I was like, I'm Spike because I'm like secretly queer too. So I had all this like multiple things going on at once.
Your timelines were adding up at the same time.
They were. It was very
They
weird.
were intertwined. It almost like it was an alternate reality.
Yeah. Oh shit. Yeah.
You could write a spec about that.
I could.
I
actually I have written a short spec where it's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, but the lead is indigenous Latino, and he's fighting these like indigenous monsters from South America.
Oh wow!
Oh, that'd be sick.
Yeah, right. I think it would be cool.
You're gonna have to send that to me. I wanna read it.
Well, since you picked Spike and Angel, I think it's only fair that Kay goes next. So why don't we talk about who you are?
Okay, well, with an ensemble cast like we had in this show, which honestly most WB shows I feel like usually do have like a really big cast, especially the dramas. Of course, I was like so many different people in this. So the listeners know that Hannah always chooses 2 people. So I'm going to say that I am pulling a Hannah today because I chose 2 people as well. So the first most likely correlation that I have that anybody would probably know is to Cordelia. And she was the head cheerleader, which I also was in high school. She was like,
I need to see those pictures.
Squad. Yeah.
Well, we'll do a double.
Yeah.
We'll do a double.
Definitely.
I have blonde hair.
Wow.
But she was like a natural born leader, I felt like. And yet she had like this like blockade, I feel, up that kind of made her sort of a bully. And when we first meet her, however, after she goes through some like fucked up scenarios with the gang, the Scooby-Doo gang, as if we will, she starts to like soften, and I think we see more of like who she really is, like her true side. And so much so that she falls for like the dorkier guy, Xander. Eventually,
shocking.
Who would have guessed that? But as this pertains to me, I think in high school I really wanted to fit in, and I thought being bitchy to people or like acting like I was above them would help me fit in, like at my school. Just because, I mean, I went to mostly an all white school, and it was like a very religious town, and so being different was like an absolute no. We didn't have like the different pockets of people who were still like kind of cool but different, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think I never felt like I was my true self most of the time, unless I was around like my real friends who maybe necessarily weren't the most popular people, which would be kind of like my, Buffy squad in this case. And I also even dated a guy right after high school who definitely was not like the coolest in his grade. He wasn't like super hot. He didn't play any sports, which was like the popular thing to do. He was very short, but
Sounds like most of my dating history.
Definitely not mine. I feel like I always pick like I'm like the hottest person who has like that people think like
Not me. I like the medium uglies.
I hope you're not seeing anybody now. And then they like.
I am. I've said this to his face. It's okay.
Oh, that's love right there. I'm telling you.
oh God. well, Hannah knows that I still struggle with this because I will be like, I just don't think that they're hot enough for me. I don't
That's
know.
valid. It's valid. You know what's
But-
funny? Cordelia had my favorite line in like the first episode. It was like, she's like, "What's your childhood trauma? Like, what's wrong with you?" And for her
I might have
to say
swap
that,
my answer
yeah.
because that's very meek.
that one line is why Hannah is gonna pick
Wow,
this.
yeah, no, it was like,
Oh, yeah.
oh my, like for her to drag somebody that badly, like on just like a diss, like what's your childhood trauma that you're so fucked up that you're like this today? Like, wow.
Oh, I don't say it like that. That's like the first question. Whenever I'm bonding with people, I'm like, tell me your trauma.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that, you get to know somebody that way.
It's trauma bonding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
But I definitely grew into that part of myself. And then also later on in the series, Cordelia starts getting like those visions that
that's
she
right.
has, which if, any of my friends will tell you that I think I'm like a medium.
Cool. Okay.
Like I know things. It's weird. I'll like text somebody as soon as they were gonna, like, I'll text them about something that they were like, oh, I was just doing that or something. And I'm like, that's weird. Or I'll like have like daydreams or real dreams about things that then end up happening shortly thereafter. I don't know. I just feel like there's something like very intuitive in me that just like feels what's going to happen.
It's awesome.
So
You're in touch.
Yeah.
You're in touch with the collective unconscious. If you ever have any vision of me or anything, please let me know ASAP.
I will text you
I need to know.
immediately.
Yes.
But now we're going to go into the dark side because the second, naturally I'm usually, the listeners know I always almost choose a villain when we do these because I definitely relate to villains and anti-heroes more than I relate to the heroes of any story. However, Spike was my favorite, I will say. And actually he's in like, there's an homage to him in one of my scripts, which is set in the 90s as well.
That's
so
awesome.
I'll have to send that one to you so you can check it out. But Angel was the one who had the redemption story, which was more like mine. Also, my cat is joining us here. Here's Ari Gold.
Ari likes to join.
He does. He almost will never get out of the shot when we first start recording either. Like we're like, you have to get out of here. But here he is. So Angel did a lot of bad things, obviously. Killed many, which a lot of people died in this show. But, in the end, he changes for Buffy, for love, because he was cursed to like have feelings and stuff. And he dies at one point basically and is like reborn, just like Jesus. So if you believe in that thing.
It was all tied up together.
I know. And Willow restores his soul, obviously.
Yeah.
And I feel like when I moved away from like where I grew up, which I felt so different in, and I started my own life somewhere else, that my soul was kind of like rejuvenated in a way. And I felt like more of myself again. And also I didn't really feel like myself until then. Like I didn't feel like I could be the best version of myself where I was from. It was almost like it sucked my soul out of me, if that makes sense. And so, that's who I am today and who I'm working on every day. But then Angel gets his own show.
Right.
Which we know, like the spin-off show, and becomes the main character. And I feel like because for a long time, me and Hannah have talked about this, I've always been like adjacent to like the entertainment industry. Like I've always felt like I had a lot of friends who were really successful in it and were doing the things that they loved, but I wasn't like the main, And so I was constantly supporting them over the years, and now I'm the one who truly gets to shine. So, give me my own goddamn show.
Now is your time.
Now is my time.
Hell yeah.
He's trying to bite the cord.
He mustn't do that. Well, who are you, Hannah?
All
Well,
right.
Ari,
Well,
lay down. Lay down, baby.
There we
Aw.
go.
There we go.
Little nugget.
I know.
Okay, so I originally said Buffy. I feel like
I feel like you need to stick with that.
I
don't
think I do too.
Yeah.
So this is one
She
of
does.
the
She does
very
this
few
shit all the
episodes-
time.
One of the very few episodes where I'm picking one person. This is really hard for me. I have not watched this since I was a child. So I vividly remember always wanting to be Buffy. Therefore, I feel like it's only right that I chose Buffy for this segment. And I think that a lot of my creativity or my like creative personality stemmed from watching this show in general. I've always loved supernatural shows and movies growing up. That stemmed into my adulthood. I still love Twilight. I love Harry Potter. Like witches, vampires, all that shit are like a few of my favorite things. However, I know she is a vampire slayer, but she's such a strong character, and it's not only because she's a lead, she's so strong-willed and she's quick-witted throughout the entirety of the series, which I think that's something that I've kind of built up over the years, but it's gotten to the point where I've gotten more quick-witted, and I understand her with that, and she's really resilient even if she can fall for the wrong people at times. I also relate to her not ever really feeling like she fully fits in unless she's around her group. Like that was very much me in high school growing up. I always felt really out of place unless I was with my people as well. And I always knew, I think in the back of my mind, that I wasn't ever meant to stay living in southwestern Pennsylvania. Whenever I was 5 years old, I knew in my head, I knew I wanted to be an actor. I knew I was going to live in Los Angeles and then turned 19 and just fucking did it. So that being said, she made me so unafraid of anything I probably should be afraid of, to the point where I usually say yes to everything, and I'll put myself in dangerous situations to feel a rush of adrenaline. Okay. And that's probably why I love supernatural shit so much, because I also think that I am a witch.
I believe it.
Couple witches over here. Couple witches.
That's me. I'm Buffy.
Okay, Buffy.
We even got a cat here for.
I'm gonna have to remove you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to put you on the ground, sir.
So we're back with one of our favorite segments called
How Did We Get Here? We're going to take a scenario, occupation, inciting incident, etc. from a TV show or film and imagine what it would be like if we were the characters.
This Is Me Now is technically J-Lo's 9th studio album, which she made into a feature film. It is full of jam-packed action and sort of tells the story of her entire life, and specifically her life in love. Kay and I watched this one day after recording an episode of the podcast, and full disclosure, we did get a little bit high to do so, and by a little bit I mean very high.
Very.
But it was such a wild ride. We were sitting here just jaws on the floor, and also like we laughed. We were like had the best reaction. It was just such a fun watch.
It definitely was. So, if you were to create your own This Is Me Now feature, what would the themes be? What stories from your life would you highlight through song and dance and overall theatrics? And you can even name certain numbers if you'd like, because, you know, you can take it right as J-Lo did. And what would your ideal ending of the film be? And, of course, the more fun that you can have with this segment, the better. And you can kind of make it your own as far as, like, the direction you want to go with it. So tell us. If you were to because we know you were involved in the film as well, correct? Yes. So you are the best person, really, to answer this.
This Is Me Now, the Sebastian version. The movie would start in the basement of my family home, and I would be trapped in the basement. And I'm trying to get out of the basement, but I'm trapped, right? And I have to build like a little laboratory of like whatever scraps I have that are in the basement to help me like get out of the basement. So this is like the Heart Factory, you know, version of J-Lo's movie. And so there's like a bunch of other me's like trying to work all the things. And they're like using my favorite like movies from my childhood to like come up with ideas. So they're like watching clips from my favorite movies to like pull ideas from. The whole time I'm trying to get out of the basement, there's like people that are trying to keep me in there because they want to like put me in a box. You know, they want me to be one thing. They want me to be what they want me to be. And I'm like trying to fight out of there. Because I guess for me, like a lot of growing up, I had a lot of my parents' like expectations of what they wanted for me. And it took a lot to like fight that. And yes, I'd be constantly fighting. And then I would have one scene, you know how they have this scene Rebound with like the like they were tied together with the rope and she's breaking up with her boyfriend, but she keeps coming back. That would be like me and my dad, except my dad is like teaching me math, and I hate math. Like I only hate it because he was so like about it, but he's like trying to teach me, but at the same time, for all the negative shit my dad did to me, like teaching me math, and like he's in the military, so he was very like disciplined and working out and eating right. All that discipline that he instilled on me has helped me to like be where I am today and like focus on my career. And as much as I hate to attribute that to him, it's true. Like I got that from him, and we fought all the time. We still fight, but that really has put me like at a greater advantage, I think. So yeah, so we're fighting, and what is getting me out of the house and like out of my own like confine would have to be like Professor X. You know, he's like God, and he's like up high above with his bald head, and he's all knowing, and he's like, come to me, my child, like, you know, be accepted, you know, you are one of us, whatever. And I'm like trying to get to that place constantly, but there are tons of obstacles in my life, you know, like me being queer, wanting to come out, having to emancipate myself from my family, not having a home, and having to like crash on couches, like all these little obstacles that are keeping me from my ultimate goal, which is like, you know, me being the king in my kingdom of filmmaking and creativity, right? Like that's where I wanted to be. So I would have a lot of dance numbers where I'm like fighting different versions of my dad and mom as adults, which I still do in my dreams. I don't have these like crazy nightmares where they're coming after me or I'm trying to help them, but there's another part of them that is like the monster version of them, and they're trying to get me. And I think it would have to culminate with a zombie apocalypse, something. I had a dream recently. It was like really fucking weird. I don't know. I think as I saw like an end of the world movie or something, but we were running. I was like in a Jeep driving through Manhattan, and it was like all being destroyed by zombies and the apocalypse. And I'm like driving through like Park Avenue, and then I turn on like, I think it's like 42nd Street, and I go into the East River, no, the Hudson River with my car. And there's like a family in the back that I just like picked up on the way to help. You know, they're like a random Asian family. And then I crash with my car, and we land on a boat, like a huge ship that's made out of wood from trees. Not like Noah's Ark, but it's like, have you ever seen those like wooden tables, and they're made from like a tree stem?
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole boat is like this, right? And I land on the boat with my Jeep, and then there are other people on the boat, and like some of them are like, kick them off the boat, you know, they're not us. And then other people are like, they're surviving, they, you know, we have to embrace them. And I'm like, please let me stay here because there's like a zombie apocalypse. Anyway, the people are like, okay, you have to be approved by our leader. And tell me how their leader is Kanye West. Random.
I literally thought you were gonna say. I thought you were gonna say
No,
Professor X.
Kanye. I don't even like Kanye anymore. And Kanye is like the head leader. He has these like crazy dreadlocks, and like he has like one eye, you know, because he got scratched by a zombie. And I see him, and I'm like, there's no fucking way Kanye is like the fucking leader. And in my dream, I'm like, you know, struggling with him being there. And then all of a sudden, I start to hear like zombie noises, and they're jumping into the water trying to get onto the boat. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh fuck, like they're gonna get into the boat. And then all of a sudden, like the zombies are on the boat, and they're chasing us, and they eat the Asian family that I was with first for some reason. And I'm like, oh fuck, like I gotta go. So then I end up like taking a piece of the boat, like ripping it off, and it becomes like like a piece of wood that I'm floating on, like
Okay,
exactly
Jack
like
and-
Rose.
and
Yeah,
Kate
yeah. I'm
here.
floating on this fucking door.
These zombies can swim,
Yeah.
and you're floating on a goddamn
Right, exactly.
door.
And I'm like, it seems like the zombies are so like preoccupied, like on the boat, that they don't see me escaping on my raft, like on my door to like, but ahead of me is like a cliff, like a waterfall. So now I'm like fucked either way, right? And then I see zombies finally coming up and they're trying to get onto the board, and then I wake up. So that's how the movie would end. And then I would wake up in my bed and all my family and friends are around me like Wizard of Oz, and they're like, oh, everything's fine. Like, and Kanye's like, my Kanye is playing like on the radio. It's like Jesus Walks or something, you know what I mean? So it all like ties together somehow. And there would be tons of salsa dancing in the movie because I love dancing salsa. So we're doing that.
Wait,
I
would the
think just
zombies be dancing? Would it be like Michael Jackson?
You know what
like,
it is?
Thriller-esque
Kind
dancing?
of, except I'm like kicking the zombies' asses because I'm dancing salsa so well. So I have like a capoeira type salsa going on.
I also feel like just from that like little dream sequence alone, I think you could definitely write comedy.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, we were cackling over here the entire time. I didn't know what the fuck you were going to say next.
It was the delivery, honestly, of you driving off the bridge and then going, and then there was an Asian family in the back that I picked up along the way. And it was like, that is so fucking
And the whole time I'm like, I feel responsible for them, because they have a kid, like the wife.
Well, they got eaten first. So either way.
I did a horrible job at protecting them, but I was like, oh shit.
It reminded me very much of like This Is
Oh
the End.
yeah, I love that.
And that is one of my favorite movies of all time.
That movie's great.
Go back and watch It's All About Hannah if you want to hear all about that.
It's like the rapture is happening and everybody's like at a party and Rihanna's there. Like, I don't know. It's a lot. It's
Terrifying.
a lot going on. Like, if it wasn't for the funny stuff, it's just a lot.
I love that you say it's a lot going on, and you just told us the story that you just told us. Like, that was a lot going on. Like,
It's true. Yeah. I don't know, like dystopian end of the world stuff. I don't know because we're such a saturation of it in our media, but I just can't seem to shake those dreams. Like,
well, shit, I don't know. I don't want to follow that, honestly. And I don't know why, but when I was in high school, I was obsessed with that Mike Jones song. And for some reason, when I was thinking because I was even thinking like, what would I call this? You know what I mean? And what like encapsulates like a lot of my early days until now. And so I called mine Back Then Hoes Didn't Want Me. Now I'm hot and they all want me.
I hear that.
Because that song just felt like it resonated for me right now. So mine is going to be a love story as well, but it's going to be a love story with myself.
Oh, okay. Like who was it? Niecy Nash. She was like, I want to thank myself for this award when she won.
Yeah, that's very me. So similar to yours, I also had a very tumultuous relationship with both my mother and my father when I was younger. They were never married, and they actually were two people that despised each other. So they were just dating for a short amount of time. My mom got pregnant and then ended up being a single mother. But of course, I would still see my dad, on holidays and whatever it was. But a lot of the time, I felt like they were always fighting over me and over money in particular. Like my mom was always trying to, get my dad back in court for child support or whatever it was, or say, you owe us this or you owe us that. And so a lot of my time spent, both of them felt like a lot of like getting ripped back and forth. And so I picture like, a younger version of me in some sort of like contemporary dance where, a lot of it is me just getting like tugged and dancing with one of them and then getting tugged back and dancing with the other one. And also, the song would kind of be more about like them talking shit about each other, like saying why I shouldn't be with the other person, kind of, because they were always very weird about like, I'm the better one. And so that would be more of obviously like a sad type ballad that we would start off with. And then, because I am an only child, I have to have like some sort of solo dance about the time that I spent alone, which is, consumed of me playing outside and like climbing trees and reading a ton of books and writing poems and all these things that I always did by myself. I would even play games by myself. I would teach myself like new tricks and like this is a very bad example, which we would not use in the movie, but I learned how to pogo stick with no hands while also juggling Luna sticks, which are those like Renaissance sticks that you could like fucking So I could pogo stick without hands while juggling at the same time.
I don't believe it.
I
want to see it.
That's a lot.
I
do it right now.
I don't have a pogo stick here, but I do have Luna sticks in the other room, and I can show you.
I want to see it juggle.
Well, you can see it because I can still fucking do it. I'll go out in this goddamn courtyard now, and I'll do it. I remember I showed my old roommate, and he was like screaming.
Wow, I want to see.
He was like,
I'll take a video of it.
He was like, I cannot believe that this is happening right now. But anyways, that would not be happening. It would be the art that I really enjoyed when I was younger, which was like painting. I would do characters of people, whatever. Then, once we got to my teenage years, we would have to have like a bring it on cheerleading like moment. Obviously, with a bunch of dance for teens, it would be very like, in the beginning when they're like, and I'm still big red, and then she like comes through and then they do the whole number. It would be very that. I of course would have to add in some things about how I didn't really actually like any of those bitches that I was with, but I was just very good at the sport in general. And then also kind of similar to your story, I definitely have to have something in like my teenage years where I'm surrounded by a ton of people who, in my case, all look the same. Everybody that I grew up around was Dutch. And so they all had like blue eyes and blonde hair. And they were all like pretty tall. Like all the girls were like 5'6" to 5'9" type of thing. Like no one was short. And they would be dancing all together. Like in, what is it?
In sync.
Yeah, in sync. I was going to say in synchronicity. Yeah. And I was like, is that?
Synchronized dancing.
Yeah. They would all be doing the same thing. And then I would be the only one like in color doing, something different from everybody else, dancing kind of to like my own music or my own beat, whatever, never quite like fitting in. And maybe I would even start the number because I actually did dye my hair blonde and I wore sapphire blue contacts so that I could fucking look like everybody else. And so I think that I would start it looking like that. And then throughout the dance, I would evolve into like different versions of myself. My hair color would change. My eye color would change. Like my clothes would change into more of an artist type. Yeah. And also because I do love the Zodiac people in the J-Lo movie that are like commenting on everything. I think my version of the Zodiac people would be like the parents and the kids who were constantly judging me for being different, like in my hometown. So they would be up there. They used to, the listeners know, I talk about all the time. They love to talk shit about me at church, which I'm like, okay, well, you're
contradicting.
Yeah, you're like an old woman and you're talking about a young girl talking shit about her at church. So I picture them being like all white and like they're saints, but they're not saints.
I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. So then we have to go into a car racing scene because I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I used to do organized street racing when I was younger.
For real?
Fast and the Furious.
That's so cool.
Yes.
Wow.
It was so fun. Honestly, I'm not gonna.
This bitch has lived so many lives.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I definitely have to have my Fast and Furious moment because even when I'm like still in my car to this day, driving like 30 miles per hour in LA, I'm like picturing myself doing some of this shit. You know what I mean? And picturing the music that's gonna go with it and whatever. That would definitely be like a bad bitch. Like I'm dangerous.
What would be your song?
I don't know. I feel like it's got to be like something like Megan the
Okay.
Stallion or like you know, something that's like a
Yeah.
harder rapper going during
Cool.
that moment. Although I did say that I blew out my speakers when I had that same car I used to race to Showstopper by Danity Kane.
Oh.
That would be it. That would be it. It would be Showstopper.
I busted my speakers out. And my dad was like, "How did you do this?" And I was like, "I don't know. I didn't do anything. I don't know how it happened." Bitch, you turned the bass
All the
in
way
the treble
up.
all the way up. Yeah, that's what you did.
Oh man.
Yeah. So then you know like the Britney Spears Womanizer music video that's like in the
Okay,
office
yeah.
type thing. Yeah. I would have one of those to represent like my girl boss era once I started like working after college and
Okay.
stuff, and you know the different girl boss jobs that I had throughout the years, and like being a business woman, I will say. And then my LA scene once I got here would be something like very sunny and very like girly pop anthemy, like Katy Perry-esque,
Mhm.
you know, California
Okay.
Girls, perhaps. And it would show me painting and writing and be like a callback to all the solo activities that I did when I was like a little kid. Because I find that like, you know, when you get older, you kind of revisit all of these things that you loved when you were a child, and that makes you feel like at home. I mean, I think that's what all of us are doing by becoming writers again. And whenever anyone's like, "How long have you been writing?" Every single time, writers like my
Yeah.
entire life,
Mhm.
you know? So yeah, it would. And also I feel like a lot of us, you know, if I came from the business bitch thing, it's like I'm not as grown up and like mature as I think. Like I don't need to be what society has told me that I need
Mhm.
to do, you know, to like live a successful life. And then it would end with baby Draco, which is my only child that I always talk about, because I just want to have one kid. And I will raise the goddamn kid by myself if I need to, but I will be having one. And I would be teaching her or him how to like dance and sing.
Aw.
And I think that would be like my ending, and like doing all the maybe painting, doing all the things that I
That's
used to love
beautiful.
when I was younger.
Healing your inner child by doing these things
Yeah.
with your child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
What journey are you taking us on, Hannah?
Okay, so mine wasn't really going to be a love story necessarily, but I was recently talking to someone, and a few people have recently told me that I should write a book on my life experiences, because I also feel like I've lived so many different lives. So I'm going to use this as a way to write that out and also tell the birth of the story of Lex.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
So I think we would start out childhood, dance sequence on like bikes, like
Cool.
bike riding dance
Yeah,
sequence, or like a quad riding bike sequence, because I used to grow up like bike riding and quad riding with my friends all up and down my street. Like there was a group of us kids, we all lived on the same street, houses just like up and down the block, and I'm still best friends with the one girl, Brooke, to this day, like family. So I think it would start out that way, just like lighthearted, fun, and then it would turn into, like, it would speed up through the years. So the things that speed it up are kind of like a time clock sequence that shows a lapse of different, like a film cut of different parts of my life and people dancing around and singing. And it could show like different emotions. So through that, it jumps to an emotional sequence between my family and my character around moving and like leaving the nest, because I'm the baby of the family, the last one to leave the nest. There would be like emotional dancing. I'm not a choreographer. I also am not a songwriter. So we're just gonna go with the vibe.
Love that.
But it'll be like kind of emotional and like sad, and that will step into a happier number once I finally am like in LA to like getting out of the hometown. And then that will transition to a quicker sequence that goes through different waves of my life in LA, meeting Kay, trials and tribulations of like what sequences slows down and it'll stop whenever Kay and I first start chatting about working together. So Halloween costumes, it's a Halloween moment.
Ooh.
So there's think think like Michael Jackson Thriller, but not with zombies. It's just like with everybody in different Halloween costumes, like what's that, 13 going on 30, except they're in Halloween costumes. But also you could think of it as, I wrote down Wicked, when Elphaba and Glenda finally are connecting and becoming friends, because Kay and I have talked about this before, but Kay did not like me whenever we first met, because she didn't know me. She didn't give me a chance to get to know her. She just was associating who I was with the people that I was hanging out with at the time. And that made her not really like me, because she had heard different things about other people, and then she finally got to know me, and then we fell in love. And now we're here. So then that would transition into another sequence that would just showcase different trips that we've gone on together, like a little time lapse of like film, and then it would end, or not like end, but it would stop on whenever we went to Cabo. There's one specific moment where whenever we were out until like 4 or 5 in the morning, we made friends with the cartel, kind of. And our friend Braxton, who is also a previous guest. Okay, so this is going to be like kind of upbeat, fun, but then it kind of gets like dark energy whenever we see Braxton grab someone by the throat and hold them up against the wall. And we're stressed out. Like everybody stops dancing. Or at least we stop dancing, and everybody else just like kind of freezes, and everything goes slow motion. And then all of a sudden they're hugging it out, and it gets upbeat again. And then everybody transitioned into like a goodbye dance, to where we exit the bar and we step into what looks like just black. And then we enter into a room, and it's just Kay and I. And then we sit down, and we end it with us sitting down in front of Mike saying, "Welcome to She Said What."
I like that, how it came back. That was cool.
Yeah.
Okay, look at us being storytellers.
Honestly, though, all these things need to be made.
Hell yeah.
I agree.
Well, now that we have exhausted all of these stories, and we've made 3 different movies, which are all very entertaining, I will say. Next we have Let's Hear It for the Girls.
So since we love to end on a positive note, Let's Hear It for the Girls is a segment where we shout out the female identifying people in film and TV that you, the listeners, should know about.
So these are the emerging or maybe slept on creatives that you can support and check out in the future. So we want to know from you, who are some of these individuals in your life that you're saying let's to, that are killing it right now, and why?
Well, I want to shout out all the amazing women in the NBC launch program. Helen, Maia, Neda, Domonic, and they're fucking killing it. Like, I'm telling you, they have been inspirations to me, because not only are they amazing writers, but they're super creative, they're humble, they're real people, and they're like nurturing creatives that want to like help you get better at your craft, and just family. And I think like those women today like are really lifting me up. And I can't wait to see where they go and what they do.
So, Sebastián.
Yes.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounded a little bit more French, I think. What are your next endeavors? What can people look out for and check out of yours in the near future?
Yeah, well, I actually just got staffed on my first show.
Party
up here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the ultimate goal, to get staffed. I mean, come on. It's huge.
And it's a dream come true.
Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. This was such an enjoyable conversation. I laughed. I was tearing up, all the things. So we will have many more Let's stories. How did we get here? I'm a blank, and Let's Hear It for the Girls in future episodes, along with several other fun-filled segments and guests.
In the meantime, make sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at OCS Productions, and let us know which segments you love, which segments you absolutely fucking despise. We have so much more video content as of late, and we want to interact with all of you.
Also, please, for the love of Garden, rate us with wonderful 5 stars. 5 only. 5 is the only option for you to pick. And also write us a review on Apple Podcasts. Takes, a couple of seconds to twitter your thumbs across that keyboard. And we will catch you next time for more She Said. Let's